what makes a great property? So when people go and decide what to buy, one of the key things they do often is choose a property that they want now. And it's different at different stages in life, but the problem is, particularly for first-time buyers, they go, oh, I really love this one-bedroom apartment in Double Bay in Sydney or whatever, and oh, it's a student accom near blah, 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 and they're absolutely crappy properties. They're what's called in the terminology is a dog. It's a dog property. It'll always be a dog property. It won't grow. Don't buy it. And I've had clients buy, one client bought this, no, he did not take advice from me, bought a 2-bedroom apartment in South Yarra. It has not grown in about 15 years. He's paid so much in body corporate fees. And when you Google up and check, you'd think, surely to God, in 10 years you would have got something. Zero growth, because he'd overpaid, bought it off the plan, blah, blah, blah. And the thing has been an absolute dog of a property. There are dogs out there. Just because it's your first property, don't think that it's going to be a great one. Buy something that's going to make you money, because there's no point otherwise. So you want to buy something that either you can convert long-term into an investment, or you can sell for a profit because you've had capital growth. So there's things to look out for when you're buying a property. So what do you think makes a great property? Oh, and this, I want to show you this. I get these emails every week. Look at this. They send me this email saying, I'm going to give you $47,500 in commission so that I will recommend these properties to my client. Yeah, hello. And the property will cost $798,000, and then they'll get $750 to $800 a week rent. What do you think of that?
It doesn't get any better than that.
Well, it would do. If I could sleep at night doing that, that would be great. I would be very wealthy. But what I've got to warn you is, if someone is offering you an off-the-plan property, just be very aware of what is going on and who's making money from it. And they might tell you, oh, no, I've bought these investments myself. Call it out. Don't do it. So many properties off the plan are giving huge kickbacks to accountants and mortgage brokers and financial planners, and they are dogs, dogs. If that property has that much commission in the purchase price, what do you think your property is going to be worth in 5 or 10 years' time? So it's got to make that up. It's not comparable to what's available in the area, and it won't be. It's always a problem. So that should warn you. I get these all the time. It's extra, and they're really great about it in Queensland. This is how they sell up there, but they're also doing it for apartments in Melbourne and Sydney and Canberra. So let's go and have a look at realestate.com and see what we can find. And where were you looking for a property? Did you say Bayside? Bayside, Victoria?
Yeah.
So I'm just not using your figures because I don't know what they are. So I'm just going to put in something Bayside, townhouse, apartment or unit, and I'm going to put a price of $750. I don't know if that's at all relevant to you, but that's what I'm looking for, all right, just to give an example. And I want 2 bedrooms, and a car space would be really nice, and away we go. And let's see what comes up. So when I'm looking at a unit in these blocks, I want to first up check the aspect. All too often they won't have a good view, but at least this has some green. So happy days, that looks something. What else has it got? Reasonable kitchen.
Just so it's like a nice place to live.
So I'm looking like, because what people will buy, but it's on the Nepean Highway, so there's a worry, but, you know, it mightn't be too bad. It might look into a small street rather than the main street, and the rooms aren't too bad. No, it could be a lot worse. However, personally, the power lines are a problem here. And when you find a place you actually like, make sure you check it on both realestate.com and Domain, because sometimes they will remove power lines from photos. I've had one exact same property, one photo had this big pole in the middle of the driveway. It was clearly like right in the middle of the drive. You had to drive around it to get into the driveway. How they even got that through council was extraordinary. And on the other one, it had been wiped out because they were trying to target an investor from Melbourne or Sydney. So they actually removed that and hoped they wouldn't come and see it. Can you believe that?
It doesn't make sense while it was there. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So here's a little place, and often, particularly for first home buying, these units often, depending on where they are, of course, are a lot more valuable in terms of long-term growth. They're slow, but they're steady, and they do, because there's a lot less of them, and you've got a footprint that's worthwhile. Now, and even better for a place like this, old kitchen, not renovated. It's probably grandma's been living there. It's got a street frontage, which is excellent. Might not even have a body corporate, even though it's a unit. So there's something to be said, oh, that could be quite a useful property to have a look at if that was in your range, in your area. So what I'm looking for, are they solid brick? Is there anything likely to be a problem with that? I would still order a building inspection, whether it's a new property or an old property. Why? I've had clients buy a unit down in Geelong. It was a brand new unit. And he goes, oh, I don't need a building inspection. Oh, yes, you do. Just get one. And sure enough, even though it had been signed off by the engineer as compliant for energy and all that rating, it had no insulation in the roof at all. And his mate, the builder's mate, had just signed off on it without him even going there. The guy in the front apartment had already settled, and we were able to tell him, well, you need to get your insulation put in because you won't have any either. And it's not 4 or 5 star energy rating, it's like 0. And we said to him, oh, you've had your compliance done and what they've put together is illegal, you know, just crooks, because they're saving themselves some money and they're hoping people are too stupid to check because they go, oh, it's a new house, you don't need to worry. Another client refused to pay for a building inspection for a house they were buying, and they said they went to check it themselves and they'd arranged to have the power put on, and when they got to the place they said, oh, the power's not on, what's wrong? And I'd said to them, get an inspection. No, we're good, we know, save ourselves those few $100s, which is the stupidest thing you could do. And when they went there, they rang the power company because the power wasn't turned on, and the woman said, oh, go to the power box and tell us what's on the dials. And she went to the power box and there is nothing there. There's no meters, no dials. And she said, there's nothing there. And the power company lady goes, oh, yeah, that's right. We had to remove them because they were jacking power off the street for their drug running operation at this place. So she had no power, and they were in unconditional territory. And the vendor then said, oh, well, you know, power's available. I said, yeah, so's a Ferris wheel down the street. That doesn't mean it's part of your thing, and it's in the contract. So the conveyancer wasn't even helping them, and they would have had to pay for it. Instead, the vendor had to pay for it. But when we went through it, she said, I wondered why. I thought they were just horticulturally minded because there was pot plant marks on the floor. And the blinds were stapled to the walls. Hello. I said, well, most building inspectors would have picked that up, that was a dodgy property. Just like, how weird, you know? And they stapled all the blinds to the walls. You know?
So Louise, for a property inspection, how does that work? Like, is that a third party that you reach out to?
Yes, and we'd get you an independent building inspector, not necessarily one the real estate agent recommends, all right?
Okay. Yeah.
Don't do that. Get your own. So when we're looking, the other thing you want to watch for in older properties, see this yellow glass there that looks like in that wall there? I'm not quite sure, but it's just as an example. In older properties, pardon me, that glass might not be Australian standard. So if you had kids, you want to watch that because kids go through them and there's no requirement once you bought it. I mean, you just got to be aware. If you're buying it, you've got to get it removed or be aware. The greatest thing you can do for capital growth is when you've bought, plant some trees, because 5 years later, 10 years later, it'll change the value of the property just by having some magnificent trees there. People do not realise the value of popping in a few minor little planting trees around the property in good places away from your business, and it can add huge value to your property. So often look at that sort of thing as well. And weird floor plans. You want to avoid things that have weird floor plans unless you can fix them. You want something that has a bit of flow, and you'll know it the minute you're in it. Oh, it feels weird. There's something wrong with this. Unless you think you can change it, don't buy it. It's because it's always going to be a problem, and then it costs in the price. So see this place. It has an absolutely shocking aspect. you can't barely use this because everyone's looking down on you. So you've got to look at those sort of things. There might be reasons why you might buy something like this, but it's less likely. There's nothing in that I would recommend. But people go, oh, it's lovely because it's new. Well, then when you're trying to sell it, it won't be new and you might find it's a lot less comfortable. Is this useful to you ladies? Is this helpful information? Is there anything you want to know about what sort of particular property you're looking for?
I wanted some info on the land to building ratio.
Well, John Lindemann, who I highly recommend as a property researcher and advisor, John Lindemann, the Lindemann Report, he's terrific for helping identify good suburbs to buy in. And he's got great research, and he's an older guy who's made his money and he's happy to help people for free. So I really like him. Extra. He's really good and he's just lovely. And he says there's not that compulsion about land anymore because the depreciation, both land and the buildings appreciate, even though you can claim depreciation on the building when you're an investor. So yeah, it's much less a problem. There was one set of units that I remember someone saying about it was built out over water. You go, well, it's got no land. In effect, it's out over the water. But you're saying, oh, they must be cheap because they've got no land value. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. So yeah, it all depends on the property. So anyway, you get the idea. When you're flicking through, you want to have a quick look and make sure where it's at, what it's at. Then you can go to Google, do a Google search and do the street before you even go and have a look to check what's around it.
Sorry, also, I remember you mentioning like the kitchen. It's better to get for example, maybe potentially an older house, but in a suburb or area where there are less houses popping up because it's more of like I guess it's
a better property.
Yeah, better property, more value in having that property. I think if you get something like that, and then what are the top 3 things, for example, that are easiest to change? Like, I guess what I'm thinking about is like carpets. You can like rip them up, put in other like floorboards or like a kitchen. I don't know.
Depends on what you can afford, obviously. Yeah. But the cheapest thing always to do is paint. And then I would, if there's good floorboards underneath, which you can often tell by just looking at the property, how old it is, then you'd rip up and polish the boards for sure. Because people love a floorboard like that. It's a great way to go. But if it's old and yucky underneath, or they've had tiles and yucky stuff, then you might it might not be worth your while ripping it up. One thing people will say to me, oh, it's great just to put in a re-tile over whatever you've got in the bathroom. Don't do that. It's a really stupid thing to do unless you're selling it straight away. And even then, if you're holding the property for any period at all, you'll be doing yourself a great disservice not doing it properly. Rip it out, do tile properly, make sure it's actually waterproofed and look at things sensibly.